All right. Thank you, Ashley. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Absolutely, no problem. And so you'll see at the very top of this screen that in-person issue visits from constituents when you go have those meetings with members of Congress when you're here in DC last September, or if you're going to your state house to have in-person meetings with lawmakers at the state level, that those have the highest amount of impact. Right below that is contact from constituent representatives. So that's our government relations team here at ANCOR. And then right below that in the third is individualized email messages. And I won't go through the whole chart. I'm happy to share these slides with you all if you're interested in digging deeper on which specific advocacy tactics have the most influence on your decision makers. But you'll see that individualized engagement with members of Congress, whether you're sharing stories, whether you're meeting in person, whether you're combining the two, sharing data that we have from our research and the impact that they share through those stories. Those are really the things that influence members of Congress, especially as they're trying to make decisions. And so please know that anytime you're engaging with a member of Congress, that personalizing it is always the best because it'll have the most impact. But also that as a constituent, as you're reaching out, they put a higher priority on your outreach to that office than they do necessarily any other lobbyists coming in their door or any other engagement they have from organizations as a whole. And what happens a little behind the scenes magic, and this happens, I know this happens at the state level. When I was in undergrad at the University of Kansas, I spent some time at the Kansas State Legislature as an intern working for a member there. And so I know deeply how state legislators work too. Um, when you reach out to a congressional office, whether you're making a phone call to their office, whether you're sending an email, whether you're sending a letter, or you're coming to meet in person, usually at the front desk or with a specific member of staff who's covering the front desk that day. They'll usually have a tally sheet at that desk, really an Excel spreadsheet these days, but a tally sheet going. And every time a constituent calls, and that's why if you've called your member of Congress previously, and they've asked if you are a constituent, always highlight that first. But they're really making sure that the folks that are calling their offices are really connected to your communities. Those offices tally all of that outreach. So any calls, any emails, any texts, and any social media posts are tallied by issue area or by piece of legislation. And it really helps to inform staff and the members, the lawmakers, about the issues that their constituents really want to prioritize, their constituents' wants or needs. Because really, at the end of the day, that decision maker, that lawmaker is you are the boss of that lawmaker. You make sure that they have that job, and as a constituent, you hold a lot of power. And next, just digging a little bit deeper into this type of research, which I also find helpful. I will get past the research. I love data and stories, and I also really find this helpful to share. But this chart also from that same report from the Congressional Management Foundation um, shows the frequency and helpfulness of specific information in constituent advocacy. So how helpful is the information that constituents are providing when you are engaging with that office? And really, I want you to take away from this is that engaging with lawmakers about the impact of IDD services and building relationships with staff, building relationships with those members of Congress and state legislators and your mayors and council members is really the key to our success in protecting IDD services and ensuring that all of you have the resources you need to do your work on a daily basis. And so from this chart, you'll see that at the very top, what is very helpful, but also what is, it shows in the blue what is very helpful, and then in the lighter blue, what is very frequent or frequently shared with those offices. You'll see at the top that what's very helpful is information about the impact of the bill would have on the state or district. And so at ANCOR, we provide a lot of that information in our fact sheets and in our research, like the Workforce Crisis Survey report that we launched late last year. All of that kind of data and information that we share is really frequently shared, but also very helpful. Um, the constituents' reasons for supporting or opposing, also very helpful to the office. And only about 50% of the time is that shared. And so anytime you're reaching out to a decision maker or a lawmaker, you really want to share that you as a constituent have a reason for calling and that you really want them to support or oppose a issue area or a bill that is important to you and share the reason why with them. They really want to hear from you. They might seem like they're busy especially with phone calls, picking up call after call at a front desk may not seem like the most glamorous job, but they really do want to spend time with you and hearing from you as their constituent about the things that you want to ask your members of Congress. And then you'll see at the very end that a personal story related to the bill or the issue is very helpful to that member of Congress, but it's shared very infrequently. So remember, share your personal story. I know we spent a lot of time on that in Advocacy 101 when you guys were in DC last year, but really making sure that we're sharing personal stories, we're sharing the stories of the people that we are serving and the impact that your work is making on an everyday basis. That is incredibly important. And members of Congress and legislators really want to hear from you about how specific bills will impact your lives on a daily basis. And then I also wanted to share how stories really help to drive home these policy solutions and put a human face to dollar and data amounts, which members of Congress are overwhelmed by on a regular basis. And they really highlight the real world impact. And you might wonder, when you're in DC, you probably saw journalists from big national outlets like the Washington Post and the New York Times while you were traveling around Capitol Hill that day. And those outlets are absolutely available in the halls of Congress. But big national outlets are also concerned about what's happening in states and cities across the country. And just this week, we saw this piece that was featured in the 19th News, which is a national outlet, and it's focused on the Idaho Medicaid cuts. And so uh, we you'll see in there, and I can also share the link to this piece if you're looking to dive deeper in here. If you're not in Idaho and don't know what's going on in Idaho, the state legislature and really the governor is looking to make big cuts in state Medicaid funding in order to balance their budget. Unlike Congress, almost every state has to balance their budget, and so one of the ways that the Idaho legislature and the governor in Idaho is doing that is by cutting Medicaid funding in states. And so this national outlet is really focusing. If you take a look at this, you can see that there are several stories of people living with disabilities and their family members are highlighted how these cuts to Medicaid funding will impact their lives on a daily basis. It also highlights our workforce crisis survey, so shout out to us at ANCOR. But I thought it was a really great piece in sharing how personal stories, how the media covers personal stories as it relates to legislative or government activity. It happens in your cities all the time. I know that that the local outlets are getting cut more and more, and so there's less and less local news happening in your communities, but big outlets are covering what's happening in states and cities across the country. And so always feel free to highlight these personal stories through letters to the editor, through op-eds. And if a media outlet ever comes knocking and is interested in learning more about what's happening in your state and how your agency or your organization is engaging in that topic, there's always opportunities to share your stories and the work that you're doing and how it relates to these big decisions that lawmakers are making every single day. And now we're going to go into how the advocacy that you learned when you were in Washington, D.C., or the advocacy that you're engaged in on a daily basis back home, how that advocacy is really impactful at every level of government. And I'm going to do a little federalism 101. I am, again, I'm a data nerd, I'm a political science nerd, but I feel like not enough Americans know that there are many levels of government that you can engage with on a regular basis. You all are pros at federal advocacy. Some of you have shared some of your state advocacy with us today. But all of you also live in a county and or city. Many years ago, early in my career, I worked at the National League of Cities, which, similar to ANCOR, represents cities in Washington, D.C. With Congress and with the administration. And so I always like to highlight that county and city levels of governance are really important in our day-to-day lives. They make sure that our streets are safe to drive on, that we have sidewalks, that all the city serv all of the services that you rely on a daily basis, your water, all of your infrastructure, and even things like that you wouldn't think of like immigration issues, all of those connect to county and city levels of government as well. And so um, don't forget that while we're always focused at ANCOR at the federal level and in your own work, you're focusing on the state level, that really engaging in the county and city levels of government too is important to kind of close the loop on all of the legislation that we're focusing on at the federal and state level. And all of the things that you do at the federal level, all the advocacy tactics you engage in at the federal level, you can also engage in at the state and the local levels. Um, Many of you shared that you were a part of advocacy days at your state legislatures over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, we host those as ANCOR's Policy Summit and Hill Day. We have those in September in Washington, D.C. But you can be regularly meeting and meeting with your county and city elected officials. Their doors are always open. Your mayor, you can always make a meeting with your mayor to talk about issues of importance in your community. You can hold rallies outside of the county buildings and the city government buildings. And those rallies and lobby days can also happen at the state level as well. And then finally, several of you shared that you're also having in-district meetings with members of Congress and congressional staff. While a lot of national organizations really focus on engagement with Congress in Washington, D.C., I like to make sure that we never forget about that in-district engagement. Staff in congressional offices in district or in states are sometimes forgotten, and they are staff that have been in those offices maybe for 5, 10, 20 years, depending on the member of Congress. When there is changeover in those elected officials at the federal level, sometimes those district directors or their schedulers or those staff working in those congressional offices in district, they tend to stay on because they know their communities. And so the elected officials really love their institutional knowledge about their district or your state. And so engaging with your district staff on a regular basis is a really great way to make sure that the member of Congress is always hearing from DSPs about the issues that are important to you. And staying at the state, they're a little easier to get to, although I know sometimes your state capital may be an hour drive or a 4-hour drive, depending on where you are. But don't forget that the state staff is there as well to make sure that even if your state legislature isn't a year-round legislature, I know in Kansas and in Texas and in some of the other states, they have either very short state legislative sessions, a couple of months to half a year, where they meet every other year. And so engaging with staff in those offices, it's really important to make sure that we're always in their ear and always engaging them and pressuring and persuade them to make specific decisions. Excuse me. And then I like to do a plug of staying up to date on what your elected officials are doing. And there are a couple of ways to do that. On anchor.org, or if you also just Google congressional calendar, You can find the 2026 congressional calendar that the minority leader puts out every single year, and that tracks when members of Congress are in session in Washington, D.C., but also when they're in what we call in recess. But those recess periods are really their state work periods when they're back home. In 2026, if you take a look at the calendar, you'll notice that your members of Congress are going to be home a lot more than they will be in Washington, D.C. That's because this is a midterm election year, and instead of being in Washington, D.C., focused on the work here, they really are focused as candidates, quite honestly, in keeping their jobs. And this is a really great opportunity to make sure that even if your member of Congress is up for reelection this year, or if your senators are up for reelection this year, that that we're engaging with them. And I know it can get a little tricky, and if you're interested in learning about electoral engagement and how you can do that in a nonpartisan way, I'm always here for maybe Advocacy 301 at the next level. But your member of Congress is your member of Congress, whether they're running for reelection or not. And so making sure that we're engaging with every member of Congress, even in these midterm election years, is really important to make sure that we are continuing to make progress on our advocacy priorities. And what I know a priority that you all know well is our DSP SOC bill, or our bill to make DSPs have a standard occupational classification so that we can better track the DSP workforce. And this is a really great bill to be working on in a midterm election year because number one, it doesn't have any money associated to it. There's no cost for Congress to pass this bill and to enact this piece of legislation. And number two, our main ask right now is asking members to co-sponsor that bill. And co-sponsoring a bill is a really easy way on an issue that's kind of a niche issue for most members of Congress, but on an issue that is really important to a subset of their constituents. And so please make sure either through our Action Center or Amplifier or in your engagement with your members of Congress on a regular basis, if they're not co-sponsoring the DSP SOC bill yet, please ask them to. Because if we can get enough co-sponsors, we can get those bills on the floor for a vote. And then I highlighted two other ways to stay in touch with how your members of Congress are sharing news publicly about the work that they're doing. You'll see in the middle, I pulled this from Congressman Siscomani's office, his webpage, but every member of Congress, every senator and every representative, and even your state legislators, they all have a newsletter of some sort. I really encourage you all to subscribe to those newsletters. First, they're the way that your members of Congress share with you all as constituents the issues that they are paying attention to and the issues that they are engaging with on a regular basis. And usually these come out monthly or quarterly, depending on the office. It's also the way that the members share information about events they're hosting. Maybe they're hosting a telephone town hall, which is similar to the Zoom meeting, a town hall with your member of Congress, where they invite constituents to come and ask the member of Congress questions and engage with that office. So really, any newsletter you can for any representative of elected official that you engage with, whether it's your mayor, your city council, your state legislators, or your members of Congress, I really encourage you to sign up for those newsletters so that you're really in the know about what those lawmakers are doing on a regular basis. And then finally, I also pulled the mayor of Kansas City, Missouri. This is his Twitter account. I know not everyone's on Twitter or X anymore. Some folks are on Blue Sky, some folks are on Threads or Instagram or Facebook. But I really encourage you, as you're going to the web pages for your elected officials, to also look at their social media handles and to follow them on those social media channels if you also have an account. Because that's another great way to follow what those elected officials are sharing with their community, with events that they're hosting. And it's a really great way to engage with those elected officials. A big part of advocacy in 2026 is making sure that we're using all of the resources available to us to engage with elected leaders at every level of government. And then finally, I've heard that y'all are pros at advocacy in meetings and really making hard asks in those meetings. But we wanted to talk a little bit about different advocacy tactics that you can engage in on an everyday basis if you really wanted to, but on a regular basis, and some bigger actions that you could take on a less frequent basis, like site visits. So first are email and letters. I highly encourage y'all, if you haven't taken action in the ANCOR amplifier before, to go ahead, and I'll share the link with you later on. But if you haven't signed up to be an advocate with ANCOR beyond your DSP ambassador work, to do that today. We do have a letter or an action in the amplifier for our DSP SOC bill that you could take today. And really encourage y'all to use those tools to help make advocacy easy. We do all the hard work at ANCOR to write the letter and have a great template for you all to use. And so really encourage you to use that ANCOR amplifier to engage with your members of Congress. But what a lot of folks also like to do is write letters to Congress. You can still write a handwritten note to your member of Congress, and I will share. I wouldn't necessarily put it in the mail. I would either hand deliver it to your district office or your legislator's office in your town, at the state level. For city council members and your mayor, you can still send a letter. The reason why I say don't put it in the mail necessarily, especially to Washington, D.C., is that any letters that you send to your member of Congress to their Washington, D.C. office don't get sent to the office that you went to on Capitol Hill. It goes to a sorting facility offsite. And because of all the anthrax scares over the last 20 years, they have an offsite processing facility for all of the mail that Congress gets. And these days in 2026, they never actually send the physical mail to the offices anymore. What they do in that processing facility is they basically scan all of the mail as they're checking it for any unwanted substances. They scan it all, and then they basically send a PDF of all of the mail that that office has received to usually the legislative correspondent whose job it is to go and sort through the mail. And that mail gets irradiated. And if you ever want to look on Google and look for a irradiated congressional letter, they don't look the same as when you put it in the mail itself. It gets really faded. If you use like any colored markers, that tends to bleed. And so always, if you do want to write a handwritten letter to your member of Congress, always encourage you to deliver that to their district office. And those district offices are usually either in your city, your county, or really close by to you, but encourage you to send them there. Another great way, and why I shared the Kansas City Bears social media account, is engaging on social media. This is a huge and powerful tool that we can use to engage our members of Congress on a really regular basis. Tagging your member of Congress, and this is why I ask you to go follow them, because then when you want to post about a specific issue, engage that legislator, it's really easy to tag that legislator in your communication, in your tweet, in your post, in your Instagram post. And so using social media is really powerful because it's not only directed to that lawmaker, to that elected official, but it's also viewable by the general public. And so when you include that, the handle for that legislator's account or your mayor's account, they'll get a notification in their account that someone has posted about them, and they'll see it no matter what. So it's a really important part of that, but also making sure that that we're publicly asking our members of Congress while at the same time privately asking their members of Congress. There are two different levers that we use in our advocacy tactics to pressure or persuade them to do something, and asking publicly for a member of Congress to co-sponsor the DSP SOC bill. is a really great way to amplify the letters or the emails that you're sending on that topic in a more public sphere. Phone calls. I know more and more all of us hate phone calls, and picking up the phone is a task that none of us technically want to do, or you're a little bit scared about picking up the phone and calling your member of Congress, your state legislator. But I really encourage you, and as a grassroots advocacy professional, we use this sparingly because it is such an important tactic in our toolbox. But really encourage you to, on a regular basis, if you pick up the phone and call your member of Congress or call your state legislator in the interim to ask them to support the DSP SOC bill or to support direct support professionals or invest in Medicaid at the state level. That when we ask you to do that at ANCOR, when it's a really high pressure situation and there's a vote on the floor, that you're not scared to pick up that phone. So always encourage you all to practice these advocacy tactics when it's a less intense political environment, so that when the time comes when it's a really important, then we need to flood congressional offices or to flood state legislative offices with phone calls, that we have folks that we can call on to pick up those phones and to make that call, because it's an immediate way for the office to know if their phones are ringing off the hook. They know that their constituents are really concerned about something, and so we want to make sure we're using that appropriately, but also practicing that throughout the year. And then finally, a really great advocacy tactic that I always love, and is particularly important in a midterm election year when Congress is back home more, and in the summer or in the fall, if you have a state legislature that is only in for a couple of months in the winter and spring, are site visits. And visits are a really great way to show elected officials the work that you're doing on a daily basis. The stories are really helpful to show that, but there is no comparison to bringing an elected official with you on a day in the life of a DSP. You can invite them, and obviously we want to make sure that we're clearing those days with our organizations and with our agencies and making sure that we're getting all those clearances done. But site visits are really an important tool and tactic for us to share the work that you all are doing on an everyday basis and show what it's like to be a DSP. Many members of Congress, until their own family members have a health concern or a health need, many members of Congress don't know what drug support professionals do. Many of them are lawyers or educators or not in the medical field. And so they don't know what you do on a daily basis. And so being able to take those elected officials on site visits and really show the impact of your work on a daily basis is really important. And you're probably sitting here thinking, Ashley's telling me about all these great advocacy tactics, but I don't really know what to do next. And so I really wanted to highlight some advocacy tools and resources that we have available to you 24/7 on ANCOR's website, and you can use it as your advocacy toolbox. The first is our ANCOR amplifier, which I've mentioned a couple of times today, and that is our action center. We have, I think, 4 actions available for you to take today. One of those is, and the highlighted one is on the DSP SOC bill. At the top of that page. And this is just a place where we could provide you all you all and all ANCOR members with template emails and letters to Congress. If you do want to write a handwritten letter to your member of Congress and want a starting place, you could always use the templates in our amplifier to use that as a starting place for your own handwritten letter or your own hand-typed letter to your member of the Congress. But please, please, please personalize those letters and those emails. You can personalize it in the amplifier itself, and it's really easy. You just put in your name and address, and it pops up the appropriate letters for your members of Congress on that particular topic. That's important, especially for the DSP SOC bill, because there are a handful of members of Congress that have already co-sponsored. So there are thank you templates for those members of Congress, but also request letters for those members who haven't co-sponsored the bill yet. And then finally, our advocacy toolkit. These all of the tactics I talked about today in district meetings, site visits, social media posting, and those letters and those emails, all of those toolkits are available for you to use and to reference in our advocacy toolkit on anchor.org. But really wanted to also share that I'm always available to you all. Anytime, if you're interested in tackling a specific advocacy tactic that you haven't done before, I am always happy to jump on the phone, jump on a Zoom, talk you through those logistics and really support you all in the advocacy work that you're really doing. So I think this is the time we wanted to pause and take some questions. But thank you all uh, for those advocacy pros here for listening in as I walked through that presentation this afternoon.
I have a statement. It's not a question. I had connected with a state representative via Facebook, and I kind of felt like it was a little unprofessional. But it was effective, and I got meetings out of it. So I know sometimes social media seems personal, but it can be used professionally. And like I said, it was very effective.
That's great. Yeah, I think, and some people have professional, if you don't want to use your personal social media account, I know some people have like professional Twitter or Blue Sky accounts that they use to engage with the public or legislators. But also use your personal account. You're a constituent of that member of Congress and you're engaging personally. And I always like to share, members of Congress and state legislators and mayors, they are people too. They want to engage with you as a person, not just as their elected official and their constituent. And so reaching out via Facebook, if you can get an answer that way, highly encourage that.
Ashley, I had several members of this cohort reach out to me specifically regarding resources. And when I pointed them to where the resources are, they were really, really helpful. Would you mind doing showing the group like through how they would get there, just from our anchor page, how they might get to the resource pages?
Absolutely. Let me stop sharing that presentation and let me pull it up.
Oh, this is an amazing resource. The GR team does such an incredible job with this. There are many, many things that you might be able to pull off to use in the meetings that you have.
Absolutely. So I hope you can all see my Chrome browser. If you go to anchor.org, this is our homepage. We sent Capital Correspondence, which is our government relations newsletter out today. So hopefully you all received that. But if you hover over advocacy, you'll see under this Get Involved section of our table of contents here, you'll see our advocacy toolkit, which again is a incredible amount of resources that our government relations team has pulled together. I joined Anchor in October of last year, and this all predated me, and I was very excited to have all these tools already available. And so has some advocacy 101. We have all of our fact sheets. You'll see our DSP soft bill fact sheet, and some of our other fact sheets here too. And if I keep going down, I'll have our site visits and our in-district meetings, as well as our storytelling tools. And so I think you all have seen several of these toolkits throughout our trainings throughout the last couple of months, but highly encourage you to use this advocacy toolkit to take a deeper dive. And I'll just show it has everything you really need for engaging in these events. So you'll see for in-district meetings and site visits, it really takes you step by step of how to have an in-district meeting, it has the meeting request in here for you already, so you can just pull this right out and plop it into an email to send to your elected official's office, and step by step how to plan a successful site visit. So it really is a great resource for all of our advocates at Anchor. And then the second is the Anchor Amplifier. And again, this is our action center. And it's a really great way for you to easily take action If you want to take action every single day and really flood your members of Congress's office with co-sponsorship requests or thank you emails, I really highly encourage that. Um, and always, there is an option for you. If you click into these text boxes, you can personalize and really add your story into these messages to your members of Congress.
Thank you, Ashley, for giving us a little tour.
Well, if it doesn't seem like you'll have too many questions right today. If you do, feel free to put them in the chat. I'm going to stick around for a while, but feel free also, I'm going to put my email address in the chat as well. It's just asmith@ancor.org, but I'll put it in the chat. And so if after today you're taking a walk or you're thinking about your advocacy efforts back home and you're like, oh, I really want to ask Ashley about using social media for advocacy, or we have a district work period coming up. How can we better utilize that for advocacy with our members of Congress? Feel free to drop me an email at any time. I'm available to you all on a regular basis. It's the best thing I do is training advocates on how to engage in this work that my team does on a daily basis, and also provide resources to you to help you engage in that work. So thank you so much for listening to me this afternoon. And again, I'll stick around for the rest of the training.
Ashley, that was incredible. It was just what I wanted folks to hear. Thank you so very, very much. And y'all, if you haven't been to ANCOR.org, take some time to tour around. There's just a ton of resources for you. So you don't have to recreate things. They're there. And if you don't find what you're looking for, reach out to Ashley, reach out to me, and we will point you in the right direction.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions at all about any of this before we pivot to the next portion of our session?
Can the slide that she provided, can we get that too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I'll post Ashley's slide deck along with the recording, just like I did last time. I'll post it on the ECC for you. Usually just take me a day to get everything uploaded, and I'll make sure you've got it available.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Felicia. Anything else? All right. Well, it is my great honor to invite our next guest to the forefront of our Zoom stage. Lori Kress is, as I told you, the CEO of Dungarvan. She is also our ANCOR board president. She's been involved with ANCOR for many, many years. She started as a DSP many years ago when she was in college. So I thought, oh, what better person to talk with you all today than Lori? I don't want to tell too much of her story, but she had a whole plan to go in a different direction, and then she became a DSP. So, without further ado, Laura, I'd love to give you the floor to just talk to these amazing ambassadors about your path and what led you here today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's really exciting to be here with you all. I know that you've been working hard since the policy summit in DC, and it's gratifying to look out on the screen and see faces of this, next generation of advocates who are coming along, who are going to take over for some of us who've been around for a long time. So I was asked to share my origin story, if you will, and in order to do that, we have to go way back in the time machine to 1981. I was a sophomore in college. I needed a job, and I was sitting in a sociology class, and the professor gave a plug for the local human service organization, Warren Achievement Center, saying, hey, I know they're looking for staff. If anybody's looking for a job, I know they're looking for staff. And at that time, Warren Achievement Center operated a 42-bed community living facility, which was housed in a dormitory on the campus of the college that I attended, Graham Hall. And it was the oldest, most rundown dormitory on the whole campus. So they weren't putting college kids who were paying tuition there anymore, but the local organization entered into a lease from the college and 42 men and women who had previously, most of them lived in a psychiatric hospital about 20 miles away, had moved into this abandoned, if you will, dormitory. And these were folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities who, over the previous years had been housed in this psychiatric hospital that was going through a downsizing initiative. So I got a job as a residential counselor. That's what we were called back in the day. And at the time I joined that organization, they were in the process of purchasing and rehabbing homes in the community that they were converting into 1 and 2 person unit apartments. So there were about 6 or 7 of these big old Victorian houses in some cases that they were gutting and making into apartments, with the goal of moving folks out of this 42 bed dilapidated dormitory into their own apartments in the community. And in the first year that I worked there, so, I'm a college kid working evenings and weekends. And in that first year, I got to move out with the first group of 8 individuals into their own apartments in the community. And I remember to this day, moving day for those people. I mean, all the work we did in preparation of getting folks ready and helping them plan out menus and, going shopping to furnish their homes, and the day we actually move everybody in, and we had a little party at the end of the day, and we were all exhausted and so excited, right? And that was the beginning of life in the community for people, and I got to be a part of that. And I was really hooked, and I don't think I even knew it at that time. I worked through college for Warren Achievement, supporting those folks and others in the community. During the summer, I worked in an independent living skills training program, teaching people how you cook and how you do your laundry and those kinds of things. And then I graduated from college and took myself off to law school, and I was going to be an attorney. And I got about halfway through law school and realized my experience at Graham Hall and with those folks kind of ruined me for any other work. I was not meant to be an attorney. I was meant to go back into this field. And so I left law school. I'm not sure quite how my parents felt about that, but I got a job with another organization, frontline manager job, my first frontline supervisor position, and entered graduate school while I was working, got my master's degree in rehabilitation administration. And over the years, I've done a variety of jobs and have spent the last 30 years of my career here at Dungarvan, starting as a director and regional director and national director. And for the last 3 years, I've been chief executive officer. So, from the time I was in high school, I was going to be an attorney, and took a hard right turn down somewhere down the road, and I have not regretted it 1 minute. It's been the best decision I ever made was leaving law school. So that's how I came to be in this field. I had lots of opportunities over the years to do different jobs at different levels in different organizations, worked in different geographic areas and parts of the country, and different service models, residential services, employment services, case management. I worked with children, worked with adults. And so I was given lots of opportunities to support people in different ways. And that has worked well for me for 40 plus however years in this field. One of the things that I was asked to share a little bit about is, the responsibility of being an advocate and doing advocacy work. And, I think anytime that you are advocating on behalf of someone else, it's an awesome responsibility. Emphasis on awesome in many ways. And I think it's, for me in doing that work over the years, it's important that I know what's important to the people I'm advocating for. and so I think taking the time to make sure you really understand what's important to the people you're advocating on behalf of is critical. And, I have to remind myself of that sometimes too. Even now, I think I understand the issues and why it's important, but it always helps me to check in with people that we're serving to validate my understanding, because the last thing I want to do is get out there in front of elected officials and convince them to do something and I miss the mark, right? And so, when in doubt, ask. Always check in with the people that you're supporting and their families to make sure that you understand what's important to them in their lives, right? We never want to lose sight of that. That's what we're here to do in the first place. In my advocacy journey, I remember those early opportunities. It was intimidating, frankly, to think about walking into a congressman's office. I think I heard someone earlier say, it gets easier, right? We did it in Washington, D.C. Jordan, I think you spoke to that. And then you go to your state legislator's office and it really is a long game. Advocacy is a long game. And I need to be reminded of that sometimes too. I become impatient, wanting things to happen now because the urgency I feel on behalf of the people we support is great at times. And I just need people to get on board and make things happen, right? But it is about relationships for the long term. And at the end of the day, you want people, you want your legislators and their staff to want to engage with you the next time. I always think about it as this is a partnership. When I go into an office, I want people to feel like I am their partner and I'm here to give you the best information you can possibly have so that you can make the best decision possible to benefit the people that we're serving, right? So my job is not to shake my finger at you, tell you to get on board, but to really help you understand, I want you to have the best information possible. And so when I think about advocacy, I sort of approach it from that lens of how can I help you help the people we serve and make sure that you have the best information possible. I would also say, don't assume they know more than you do, because most certainly they do not. Sometimes we talk about policies and we talk about legislation and it can be confusing. Our job as advocates is to really to make that connection for legislators and their staff between this policy and the impact it's going to have on the people we serve. And you're the translators of that, right? And you're the best translators of that because day in and day out, your work, you see up front the impacts of these decisions. And so using your voice and your stories in as simple a way as possible to help translate what can feel like some very complicated things into some very basic principles for people is important, and no one will do it better than you do. I appreciated Ashley's, one of her slides, legislators and their staff are going to listen to you and your lived experience and the lived experience of the people that you're supporting and their families. And that's going to have a lot more credibility with them than anything that ANCOR as an association has to say. So even though it might feel intimidating, just remind yourself that you are sort of the experts where the rubber hits the road. And the more you tell your story and the more you translate, this is why the SOC bill is important. Yeah, it's important for direct support professionals, but direct support professionals are important to people with disabilities for this reason. And so, you're sort of always bringing it back to that level. And you're already advocates, even before you were DSP ambassadors, right? Your advocacy day in and day out in the work that you do. I remember those early days after we moved people out of Graham Hall, and I would be in the community with people doing, everyday mundane things. And I was advocating for people. I can't tell you the number of times I heard my name over the loudspeaker at Giant Foods because somebody hadn't quite yet learned how to interact with fellow shoppers. And my assistance was needed on aisle 3. And I was advocating even then. And you guys do that all the time, when you're in community with folks. And so, rely on, have confidence in yourself and rely on some of your innate abilities and abilities that you're developing as DSPs as you go forward and tell these stories. I'm not sure where we are in time, Robin. The other thing I would just say, I was asked to reflect a little on sort of career development and leadership growth. I always say to folks here at Dungarvan, I'm the poster child for, growing and developing and being promoted into other positions and leadership positions. And that will be the same for many of you, right? You will grow in your organizations. You will become leaders as you should. And so do I have any insights or tips, about leadership development and growth? A couple that I will share. I would say value transparency. It's important to be transparent about your motives. If you make a mistake, I always say if you mess up, fess up, you want to own it and then fix it and move forward. If you don't know something, ask. Don't try and bluff your way around it, right? You will, doing those things, for me, I think has let people know that number one, my motives, I have the right motives for what I'm doing. I'm going to be honest with people when things aren't going well. I'm going to do my best to fix it. And I want people to not question my commitment for the long term. It's about building those relationships with the people that you're supporting and their families and also within the organization. Practice resilience. You're going to get knocked down. Things aren't going to go well. You're going to make mistakes. I've made a lot of mistakes in my career, and there are a lot more that I will make before I end. Own it, but pick yourself up, learn from it, and keep going, pushing forward. Resilience is key in this industry, I think. Remember why you're doing what you're doing. It gets really easy sometimes to let the demands of a given day or a week or a month sort of take you hither and yon in terms of all the things you think you need to accomplish. Remember why you're doing what you're doing. And that will get you through the really rough days as well. And finally, I would say, if you don't already have one, look for a mentor. I've been very fortunate over the course of my career to have 2 mentors. One right out of the gate in that first job I had, and that's probably part of what convinced me to stay in this field ultimately. And one when I started Dungarvan 30 years ago. And a mentor for me is it's somebody who's going to tell you things you don't want to hear, as much as it is someone who is your cheerleader, but it's the person who's going to keep you honest with yourself about how you're doing. And they're going to be a great coach for you if you find the right one. And they're going to help you think about things in ways that you can't quite see yet. They'll have your back. They'll inspire you. And so for me, that has been invaluable. Both the mentors I had happened to be supervisors that turned into mentors. And I'll tell you, they were not the easiest fellows to work for at the time. I didn't think they were. I mean, they put me through my paces, and there were days I thought, holy cow. But over time, I learned that, you know what, I can learn from these folks. And so a mentor is a great thing if you can find them.
Thank you, Lori. That was just perfect. I just really wanted our group to have the opportunity to get to know you and your story and just hear a little bit from you. It's a pretty amazing story and a pretty cool beginning to where you are today. So I'm just really grateful for your time today. And I would love it if you just allow these amazing DSPs to just ask any questions they might have, whether it's, day-to-day stuff, whether it is, a career path.
Sure.
Folks, ask away. Ashley's still here too if you want to ask her. I'll give you about 5 minutes to do that, and then we're going to just spend the last 10 minutes together going over logistics for the upcoming conference.
Are you all going to Boston, by the way? How many people, show of hands, going to be in Boston? That'll be great. I'll look forward to meeting you in person. If you see me walking down a hall or something and I don't notice you, grab me.
I have a question, and maybe it's a little more for Ashley. So I know for me, I graduated at the end of the year with my degree in human services, but this experience has kind of opened up kind of a world that I didn't know about. I always say like at Hill Day, like I had no idea that there were people advocating for us. I had no idea. So if it's a direction that I do want to like keep going in, what's a good, kind of job title to look out for, like an entry level kind of government relations, public affair type position, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does. And much like Lori, I also had dreams of going to law school. And I quickly, in one of my first internships, had really horrible LSAT scores because I'm not a great standardized test taker. And my mentors at that job were encouraged me to do the work in politics and advocacy and government relations. I didn't need to go to law school to do this work, and encourage you all. You can do this work at every stage of your career or every stage of your life. You don't need to do it professionally, but if you want to, always happy to be a resource to you all, and make connections as I can. I can't believe that I've been doing this work for almost 20 years, in lots of different issue areas. And so always happy to make those connections. I think if you're looking to get into this in a more advocacy work in a more professionalized role, and a lot of our ANCOR members, a lot of our state associations have government relations or public affairs positions available. They have, much like the ANCOR government relations team, a lot of our state association partners have government relations teams that do this. So advocacy in a title, public affairs in a title, which really just means communications for advocacy, or government relations. Those are kind of the areas that I would take a look at. But again, if you want to come join us in the professional public affairs space, always happy to be a resource. Or if you just want to, if you want to continue doing this in your work time or free time, in your personal life, you can be an advocate anytime.
Thank you, Ashley.
I'm glad you mentioned our state association partners, because that's a great way at the state level to get involved in advocacy. And many of our state associations do have government relations staff or PR staff, communications, kind of in a related way. So that's a good in. If you're not, your organizations are probably members of a state trade association. If you don't know who those folks are, we can probably help you, direct you to those state association executives and let them know that you want to become more involved. That's a great way to get involved.
Thank you, Crystal, for that great question.
I don't have a question, but I just want to say that I I don't know, I guess a lot of us kind of relate to the fact that this has become our life's work. The passion, for advocacy for our individuals and also for DSPs. I know for myself, at a young age, I thought nursing was going to be my career path, but I just found the caretaking more intimate and more rewarding. So being an advocate and being able didn't even know I was an advocate at first. But learning that, what I was doing was a part of advocacy, it just really became an overall passion for me. So being involved in something like this with Anchor, giving me the opportunity to find out how I can do more, for the people that we serve has been a wonderful opportunity. And I just want to say thank you.
I think Lori said it best. She was always an advocate, but she didn't know it. So I
Yeah.
think that's how a lot
Yeah.
of us feel. We were always advocates, but we didn't know it.
Did you all see Benji's note in the chat? He says, "I really relate to Lori. That the work that she's done is ruining any other work for Benji."
Yes.
I just want to say to this group, this is the first cohort of the DSP Ambassador Program. I don't think any of us realized how successful this would be, and how much of a need there is, and so for Anchor to be able to continue this into the next, I'm really excited, and I know Robin's going to talk to you about the mentorship. I said to you, find a mentor in your leadership journey, but this is an opportunity to be a mentor too. And that is really exciting. Our organization has had some folks, I see a couple of them on the call, yay, Dungarvan DSP ambassadors, but I am excited for the next cohort as well. And it really is, it takes all of us continually hammering home on the message and sharing our stories, and you representing, the people that you're supporting and their families and your communities to make us all stronger and more effective in delivering services to people. So thank you for being willing to put the work in here, because it is extra work, right? I mean, we could all punch the time clock and do whatever for the day and go, right? And
Right.
beyond about our lives, this is more. So thank you for making space for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I had a question too. Hey, man, I appreciate for, being a part of Anchor and things too. And I want to do as much as I can. So if I can mentor, I want to do that. I did see that pop into my email. I don't know how I responded to that, but anything I'm able to do for, the population and the community that we serve, I am more than willing. Sometimes I just get real nervous. Like I had so much to say, but I was just so quiet just a minute ago and things like that. But I'm preparing myself for the 5th and the 6th. We got the practice thing for these questionnaires and things like that. I've read the questions and stuff, but I've been trying to see how I'm gonna not necessarily answer the questions, but get over this nervous. I got this
Mhm.
nervous on in my system right now.
Jenna, you're going to be great. Jenna and Felicia are going to be part of a little podcast we're doing tomorrow to kind of talk about the DSP Ambassador Program. So those are the questions he's referring to. I gave him a list to start working on.
Practice makes perfect, man.
Yeah.
You'll do great.
That's right.
I was
Hey,
gonna say the same thing that this ambassador program, I really didn't know I was that much an ambassador, but apparently I am. And I always came to the conclusion like one finger don't do as much damage as a fist. And all of us are the fist that we are coming for to advocate what's right and everything. And I would like to be a mentor. I'm kind of like that with, when I went to Jefferson City in my Missouri, and when I was in my own little group, and I had to kind of mentor one of my colleagues and everything, and I had to give the runaround and tell her like, you have more power than what you do. A voice has more action in showing your face that you matter and the people that we serve matter and everything. So, like I said, we don't know how much of volume that we hold until we do it. So,
You already sound like mentors, all of you. You really do. You blow me away. You're incredible. But we'll talk more in a minute. Any last parting questions for Lori or Ashley, and then I'll let them. You're welcome to hang out, but we're going to talk like logistics on who needs what for the conference. Last minute questions? All right. Thank you both so very much for your time. We're so grateful for you sharing your expertise.
Thank you all. See you in Boston.
Thank you.
I'm Boston. Thank you.
Okay. So, mentor, let me just talk about that real briefly, and then we'll get to logistics for the conference to make sure we're answering any questions that you have. We are in the process of putting together an interest form. It's, I don't know, like 15 questions. I'll put it out on SurveyMonkey probably by the end of the week, maybe. Sean and I are just going to take a look at it with a series of different questions to ask you about your level of interest, what your commitment level could be, and so on and so forth. So that is forthcoming. The way that would look is I would partner you up with another person, as I said earlier on, ideally within a similar location to you, but I'm not quite sure what our new cohort is going to look like yet. So stay tuned on that. But at minimum, it will be, in addition to them coming to our Zoom sessions, we would ask you to coordinate some Zoom time with them to kind of go through the program, talk about your experience, be that person to kind of guide them through the ANCOR program, but also, career advice that you might have, advice within, the DSP workforce, those sorts of things. So ANCOR DSP program, but just kind of a mentor within the field as well. So give me a couple of days to finalize that form and I will shoot it your way and hopefully, we'll have at least 24 of y'all who want to be mentors.
And Robin, I just want to say, like, thank you for like listening to all of us and creating the mentor program. Because I know most of us are like, we're not going anywhere. We don't want to leave. How can we help? So thank you for creating a space for us and listening.
You are so welcome. Thank you for wanting that space. I will happily build it. So yeah, stay tuned. I want at least 24 of you. And if there are more than 24 of you, maybe our new cohort's going to have 2 mentors. We'll see. All right.
I'm one of the 24, so
One of the
get in there.
2. We've just got 5 minutes left. What questions can we answer about logistics of the conference, our graduation ceremony, anything you all need? I just sort of wanted to open up the floor, for those logistical type questions you might have.
I was just wondering if I know one of the events that is extra is the gala or whatever on Tuesday night. I was just wondering if anybody else was planning to go to that. I am just waiting on like confirmation from my boss that my organization can sponsor that. And I'm kind of like, maybe I'll just pay for it by myself if they don't, but because I kind of want to go. But if other DSPs in the cohort aren't going or like, oh, I see, Jessica, you'll be there. Okay.
I know Sean and I will be there.
Okay.
We'll be there, and I think you all are aware of this, but as a DSP, you can purchase a ticket for half price.
Yes. Yep.
And to my knowledge, I want to say that there have been, I'm going to say this number and it's going to be wrong, but I'm going to say about 20 DSPs who have already bought one of those tickets.
Perfect.
Now that won't all necessarily be members of this cohort because
Right.
there are other DSPs who come to the conference, of course. But I have a feeling several of these folks will be purchasing a ticket, and there will also be other DSPs there that you will get the chance to connect with. And if you are able to make it to the DSP meet and greet earlier that day, that'll be a good space where you can kind of identify who your fellow DSPs are beyond your ambassador cohort.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't land until like 5:30 p.m. because otherwise I'd have to, the only flights available leaving Colorado are like at 11 a.m. or like 4 a.m. No thanks.
And it's tough when you lose 2 hours going this way.
Right. Is it what's the attire for that? Is it formal, business-y?
Whatever you plan to wear for any of the conference days,
Okay.
what
Okay.
you wear it's just the same. There's so much walking, involved with
Right.
this
Yep.
conference. You just want to make sure you wear comfortable shoes. And I'd say like as a general rule, like a business casual type vibe
Gotcha.
would
Yep.
work.
And
Probably
It's
not what I
not
wear on the
hill day
airplane.
type. It's not hill day type walking, right?
No. You're indoors and you're
Okay.
kind of a couple different levels of the hotel.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
it's not Hill Day
it
walking.
w- it
That
won't it
was
won't
some
be
walking.
it won't be that bad. Uh, but I will also say, like, I imagine that folks who are kind of business casual during the day, a lot of folks will probably change into something that's a little closer to casual because it is late, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're
Yep.
starting that party at 8
What is
p.m.
it, 8? Yeah.
I don't even like leave the house after 8.
John might be in his PJs.
Yeah.
I might be in a corner just like curled up in like a blanket. You don't even know. But but it is going to be like really it's for the first hour it's going to be kind of like cocktail party kind of mix and mingle, and then it's going to just be like 2 hours of dance party. So at the very least make sure you've got your dancing shoes and be ready to shake your shit.
Let's see. Sabrina said she's going to buy a ticket. Benji said Benji's going to figure that out. Chris, you had a question.
That is the best thing you've ever said, Sean.
I'm so glad.
Chris, what's up?
So you're able to go in and see who's all registered and all of that, right? Because with everything that's going on in my state and the merger of the three agencies being across the whole state, communication with the higher ups down south has been short fell. So my Northern Division manager and myself have forwarded all the information, but we just have not gotten any information confirming whether or not I have been signed up. So
Okay.
just to know if that was something you can look at.
I can tell you that you
and,
and
and I'm not
Catherine,
mad with them. There's just a lot. There's a lot going on right now with this huge merger and fraud and immigration stuff. It's really
definitely
complicated.
Connect with Catherine.
Catherine, okay, all right, will do.
And
Thank you.
and Chris, I can look right now to see if you are registered, and then
I mean, I looked before the session.
oh, you already did. Okay.
Yeah. So
That is that. I'm assuming that I'm not then.
as of an hour and a half ago. So that's why I said get with Catherine, or if you need me to help,
Okay.
I can.
Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. Yeah, because we've been emailing them and yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yep, that's exactly what I wanted to give this last bit of time to do and make sure all your questions were answered.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course.
Are you guys able to see who's going to the gala too?
I didn't pull that, Sean. Do you have easy access to that?
That is harder to look up. So if you're not sure, if you're
I can get with
registered,
my team. There's a team of us going, so I'll get with them.
yeah, and if you find out that like they're not sure who has registered and who hasn't, let us know. Send us an email and we'll look into it. That's all kind of complicated because those tickets, there's two different ways you can buy tickets, so we have to look in kind of multiple different places. I also wanted to address Benji's question, which is that we don't have like a formal deadline by when you have to register for the conference. Um, the only thing is that it's usually a little bit more expensive if you register when you arrive rather than beforehand. But for the DSP rate, it's the same anyway. So we do prefer you do it in advance, but technically you could show up the day of and do it, and
But
you'd be
the
fine.
thing to flag with that would be hotel space. So
Yep.
Yeah, that's
just want to make sure that you are registering in enough time that you can, you're coming and you can book a hotel.
yeah, that's the bigger issue and kind of has been for quite some time. But if anybody is having issues securing a hotel room, let us know. The Omni where the hotel or where the conference is taking place has been sold out for quite some time, but there is an overflow across the street that has information on our website. And also on our website, there's information for a service that you can use if you say, I want to be within X distance and under this price point and whatever. All of that is available on the Anchor Connect website.
One of our ambassadors reached out to me, I don't know, the other day and asked if their spouse could join for the actual ceremony that we're having for your graduation ceremony. And I wanted to bring it up in case it applies to anyone else. The answer is yes, 100%. If you've got guests that are coming with you that want to attend that ceremony, but no other part of the conference, they can do that on Wednesday. They'll just need to check in at the registration desk and get a badge. So if you've got someone traveling with you that, is not going to really attend anything but wants to do that, they're welcome.
Everybody making me want to second guess, like, am I on there? But no, I know
No,
I
you are
received.
registered. I can tell you you're registered. I can't tell you about the foundation, but I know you're registered for conference.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
We are past the hour, so if you want to jump, please feel free to do so.
Yes, I'm gonna jump actually, and I'm gonna send an email to Catherine. So thank you guys for your time.
Mhm.
All right.
Oh my gosh, this
Have
is if you're bouncing, this is our last meeting together. The next time we see you, you know what we'll probably do? We'll probably schedule like a not mandatory sort of but know before you go type call with you all. Would that be helpful?
sure.
Okay.
And I'm sorry
And
I wasn't at the happy hour. I just both of the happy hours were scheduled during on shifts at work, and I just
Yeah.
when I'm working with my guys, man, I'm so preoccupied.
yeah.
So
And one other thing that I would just want to note for you all very quickly before you hop is in addition to the opportunity to sign up to be a mentor, we're also going to be circulating sort of an exit survey that is designed to kind of assess what you have felt like your experience has been, for the program overall, but also like the individual sessions we've done. And we'll be asking a few additional questions too, to just kind of help us understand how you've been using the things that you've been learning. So that is going to be mandatory. We're not going to let you graduate, which I know sounds more of like an offer than a threat for some of you, but we will send that out via the ACC, and then we super appreciate you taking the time to do that because that's going to help us make sure that we can improve this program so it's even better next time.
All for it.
You all are amazing. Thank you for being part of this program. We will be in touch very soon.
Thank you.
Ew.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much. Take care.